Welcome to Regular Veteran. My name's Scott. It's been a little while, but you're about to see why. I mean, you've probably already seen how long this is, and now you know. It's taken me a little while to edit this one. It's with Griff. It's an amazing interview, and please definitely check it out. If you don't know who Griff is, I would explain it, but it would probably be faster for you to just... There's actually a bunch of links below to everything we talk about. We talk about so much stuff. It's amazing. We talk about his entire career, why he joined, what going through West Point was like. He just gives us the lowdown on Ranger School. You're gonna learn so much from this, and he's so well spoken. You're gonna love him. I think it's gonna be hard for anybody to watch this and not think that guy is he's got it going on. So we talk about Shark Tank. We don't talk about the blog on combat flip-flops or their SoundCloud, but those are amazing, so check them out. He's recently been doing a whole segment on guns and fear and the media, and it's really amazing. Check that out. There's a few speed bumps in the sound. Don't worry about them. You can hear what he's saying. I think the interviews are a little bit boring to watch, so I tried to mix up the visual a little bit so that it's not just like one guy talking to another guy, both of them sitting in a room. So I'm not gonna come back on and interrupt this one. Just watch it up and like, subscribe, follow, all the things. My name's Scott, and I'll see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.
I do this out of dress all the time. Like
I assume so. Yeah. I wear this shirt every single day because I'm like, if I'm gonna advertise for somebody, it might as well be myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started doing that too. Like, my career is not branding enough.
Yeah.
Which is why we're moving into some new designs on shirts and stuff like that. So as we wear it out, it looks cooler. Yeah. It fits better underneath the sport coat. Because typically when I give a talk, I'll go, our shoes, pair of jeans, branded t-shirt, a sport coat.
You didn't do that at TED Talk. Just went out there and
you
started crying. I was like, man, I gotta listen to this.
Yeah. I was almost in tears when I watched. I was totally in tears like that when I saw that video this morning. I was like,
oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
You're an emotional veteran, aren't you?
I wouldn't say that I'm an emotional veteran.
Not to say like overly emotional, but like most veterans would not admit on camera that they cried. In general, they just wouldn't say, oh yeah, I was crying this morning.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, I watched the video that I put 9 months of hard work into to bring a Gold Star mom and then jump out. And like, when we saw the initial trailers of this video, they didn't show all the images of Chris.
Okay.
And then so like I hadn't seen any images of him in a while, and all of a sudden like this pinnacle moment, we all jumped out and we were all kind of like tearing up on the drop zone because it was 9 months of hard work, and it was really cool watching her come in and then having all those images of Chris flashed over the top. It was like,
oh man,
brought it all forward.
I didn't put any work into that, and I felt the emotions stirring for sure. So that was a phenomenal video. I can't wait.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So people know your name a little bit. You've been the most one of the most influential veterans at a point or two in the past. In the past couple years, I saw that that was an accolade that you had accrued, which is amazing, especially because you're doing it for peace. You're trying to bring peace, which is not what most veterans are doing. So take me through, I mean, all the way from did you know you were going to be a military personnel when you were a kid, all the way to combat flip-flops? We got a little bit of time.
We got time. So I've told this a bunch, I think,
totally.
Some other people, but I'm a military brat. Yeah. I was born in Wiesbaden, Germany. My dad was an armor officer. We moved back to the States when he was a young captain. He went to the University of Iowa to go get a physical education degree, and then went and taught physical education at West Point. So he was one of those like hazing instructors there. And then he was also the coach of the powerlifting team. My mom and my dad weren't getting along well at that time, so my mom split. I went with her, and then my dad stayed there, and then he got stationed over in Germany. So I was, typical divorced kid, living with my mom in my grandparents' basement.
Okay.
And just still in love with my dad, missed my dad. My dad was a big Army guy, so there was definitely that attraction to want to do that. And I always had G.I. Joes as a kid. I always played Cowboys and Indians and standard like 1980s American boy stuff,
Totally.
right? And
Yep.
the whole be all that you can be, get an edge on life in the Army. And then I'd travel every summer to go over to see my dad, and he was living in Germany and working there, so he'd put me on all the tanks, and we get
What
to Wiesbaden and Frankfurt.
Oh, he went back to Wiesbaden?
He went to Frankfurt, and then he was in Freiburg and a few other areas. We were cruising around, but when I was a kid, I used to get over there, and then hey, it's the three sun, like, and then they put me on all the tanks, and I get to go sit in helicopters and do all the other things, and it was just, oh, this is what I want to do. Like, this is my dad. This is what he's doing, and so that drove all the way through. And then my dad retired when I was in 8th grade, and I was a very good delinquent, I should say. So I either got paid attention to when I was either getting in trouble or getting good grades.
Okay.
And I was living with my mom, and I was getting into a lot of trouble. And then I moved in with my dad, and then it was like, oh, I mean, I don't want to get in trouble anymore, so I might as well just work hard and get good grades. And so I just kind of applied myself in school. At the same time, he was going to medical school to be a chiropractor.
Okay.
So it was a very unique life, because he's like, hey, you're 14, you're an adult now. You can pretty much get away with anything you want to, just don't lie to me. You're gonna cook, you're gonna do the shopping, you're gonna do the cleaning. I'm going to medical school. I'll pay you a couple $100 a month to do all these things. You either, you get good grades in school. That's a given for all things. And either you're playing a sport or you got a job.
Simple.
And he's like, well, we're not paying for your college. Nobody in our family's ever had their parents pay for their college, so you got to get a scholarship.
Okay.
My dad is also a West Point graduate. And we spent some time at West Point. I thought it was really cool. So very early on, I applied for the Coast Guard Academy, United States Military Academy, and an ROTC program, because those seemed to me like the right path to go.
Okay.
I didn't get into the Coast Guard Academy, of all things, so I really wanted to go.
I actually like the Coast Guard after seeing what they do, and Coast Guard's a pretty good.
Yeah, I wanted to be a rescue helicopter pilot for the Coast Guard.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to do.
All right.
And then I applied to the Army ROTC program at Iowa.
Okay.
I didn't get in, which is weird,
All right.
And I wrestled and played football all the way through high school. Done pretty well. I did some leadership things with church and in school.
Okay.
So my packet looked really good, and I got accepted into West Point. And that's how I started in the Army.
Would you consider that better or worse than ROTC at Iowa?
I don't think anything's better or worse. It's just different. Just a different experience. But I'm really thankful that I went to West Point. I'm really thankful that I went to the academy. I got there, still wanted to be a pilot. That's what I wanted to do. I was always into skiing and snowboarding, so I was in... you can do sports, or you can do extracurricular activities where you're there, but you have to do something. Okay. And so my thing was ski patrol. So I was a snowboarder on ski patrol. I went through all the EMT training and all the outdoor rescue training, whatever they call it. And then, I got certified as a ski patroller. And then my freshman year in January, I came out of a half pipe on my snowboard, did a 360, landed incorrectly and put my shoulder down into my armpit for a grade 3 dislocation. And 2 days later, I was in for surgery. Had 3 pins put in my shoulder. The doc hit a nerve in my neck, and I lost feeling in my right arm for 3 months. I couldn't move my right hand. I had to learn how to write with my left. I developed Bell's palsy. So here I am at West Point as a freshman.
Wow.
Having to ping around, can't move my arm, can't move half my face, and learning to write with my left hand.
Did you think that you were going to be done with West Point?
I thought toward March, April timeframe I was going to be done with West Point. I thought they were going to kick me out. But I'm always I was going to all the physical therapy appointments. Nobody works harder at me in recovery. I was taking it seriously. Yeah. But nothing was getting better, and so I called my dad and said, "Hey, is there anything else I can do?" He's like, "Well, I got a great chiropractor in Freiburg," and I convinced one of the upperclassmen to smuggle me out of West Point as a freshman, take me over to this chiropractor, and he started working on me. And a week later, I started to be able to move my hand again, and got everything back.
You just had to go off base.
I had to go off base to get it done. I had to smuggle myself out.
That's such a funny paradox. Well, I got to get healthy, so I need to get smuggled.
You got to do what you got to do.
Oh,
right?
No. I would have too, but it's just, you don't necessarily think of that as the universal healthcare of the military. All right, so you got fixed.
So I got fixed, oddly enough. That summer, I went home for vacation, and it was the night before I was supposed to go back to West Point for the training between your freshman and sophomore year. complete and yuckier. And I was running down a hill and I got pushed from behind and I jumped to protect my shoulder and I twisted my left ankle and sheared my right fibula.
Okay.
So I showed up at West Point with a broken leg.
And a fixed arm.
Well, my arm was good, right? But my leg was broken. So they had to put 3 screws in my right leg and bolt my entire ankle together. So they sent me home for the summer so I could recover. Came back, had to do all of like my remedial training throughout the school year in addition to all my training. So it was the first 2 years at West Point were kind of tough, just physically.
Yeah.
But I got good grades. Like I'm always into the military lifestyle. They called me Ranger Griff even back then. I was pretty back. I don't say this word often, but right.
Okay.
And fortunately, I was doing well. They give you schools like airborne school, air assault school, different schools in the summer, and I opted to take airborne school between my sophomore and junior year. So my yuck and my cow year, and went down to airborne school, got airborne qualified, came back, did my training. Loved jumping out of airplanes. Like I'm an adrenaline junkie. I love speed. I thought it was cool. It provided me a sense of focus and calm.
That was your first time jumping out of an airplane?
It was at West Point. Between sophomore and junior year. So at West Point, they changed companies between sophomore and junior year, and I moved into a company where our tech NCO, the senior NCO, who was like the military supervisor, he was from the Ranger Regiment, and a really cool dude, Sergeant Inman, great guy. And he kind of took me under his wing, was telling me about the Ranger Regiment, and he says, hey, you're good at this kind of stuff. Why don't you maybe take a look at this? And so let's get you assigned into an airborne unit this summer because they have what's called CTLT, Cadet Troop Leadership Training.
Okay.
So they sent me down to Fort Bragg, to Bravo, 2nd of the 319th Field Artillery. So as a lieutenant in the artillery, your job is to support the infantry as a forward observer or a fire support officer. Okay. So you're leaning forward with the infantry guys, calling in the artillery rounds, and like, I'm good at math. I can figure this stuff out. And so I spent a week learning how to call math, and then I spent the remaining 2.5 weeks with the infantry unit, and they had this big operation called Purple Dragon, I think it was, where they left Bragg and they jumped into Lejeune, and then you sat in a swamp and blew stuff up for a couple days. And
all right.
I got to jump out of a plane in the middle of the night, land, link up with all my guys. Yeah, I'm good at land nav, and I was hitting everything left and right, and it's like, damn, I love this job. This is cool. Like, I get to do this. I get to jump out of airplanes and do that. And this is before 2001. Okay. So the Ranger Regiment could do demonstrations and stuff. And I remember there was 1 year between, right before the Army-Navy game, it was the Thursday beforehand, and they put on these pep rallies, and the nasty midshipman had stolen the Army mule, right? And the Rangers were going to come in and do a rescue. So we're all standing on this football field out in front of West Point, and all of a sudden, all the lights on post go black. I'm like, oh, this is cool, right?
All right.
And you kind of hear something in the distance, and out of nowhere, these 2 helicopters just come raging in, come to a hover, miniguns blazing, brass falling, fast ropes come out the back, Rangers are sliding down, hitting the ground, running and shooting. Guy fires up a quickie saw, he's into the cage, and just sparks are going everywhere, and this is all in complete darkness. And all you can see is everything off just sparks and minigun flares, and out of the woods comes these 2 R saws, which are pissed off Range Rovers the Rangers used to drive. Okay. And they look like porcupines because they got so many machine guns sticking off of them, and this thing was just flaming. And they're running out of the, heading toward the objective, and they hit a curb, and the front wheels bounce up, and the machine gunner, the vehicle commander, has enough wherewithal because he's on a machine gun, as he's tilting, pulls his finger off the trigger, makes the gun safe, jumps from the vehicle, lands on his side, does a barrel roll, doesn't skip a beat, gets up and running, grabs his rifle, and is shooting while running beside the vehicles. And I was like, oh, that's my jam. I want to go hang out with these dudes. Yeah, these are my people.
Nice.
And they came down, they landed the helicopters afterward. We got to go hang out and talk with them. And I was just like, just wanted to do that. And so that was my goal, is I was going to be a Ranger Fire Support Officer. All right. Coming out of West Point. So graduated the academy in 2001, sitting in fire support class, September 11th happens. I'm already in pre-Ranger training.
You were on your way.
I was on my way. Yeah. So but now it was resolved to go to the Ranger Regiment. Yeah. Luckily our head of fire support instruction there he just left the regiment as a regimental fire support officer. So he grabbed all the top lieutenants in. He's like, hey, look guys, this is the Super Bowl team. If you're going to go do this job, this is the job that you want. Here's the path to get there. And he mentored us on how to get to the regiment. And so 75 of us started pre-ranger training, Fort Sill. 12 of us, made it through selection. I think 6 got slots and 3 graduated.
Okay.
Which was just super fun.
Wow.
Super fun experience. Like ranger school and sucks. Like, just don't eat or sleep and you walk for 2 months. Okay.
Okay, so you just consolidated a ranger school, which I know nothing about, unless it's from TV or G.I. Jane. G.I. Jane is ranger school, right?
No, G.I. Jane's Navy SEAls.
Fuck, I'm the worst.
Dude. I do have good hair.
Air
but
Force.
I'm not a SEAL. Yeah.
I'm Air Force, so I just get confused. So if I haven't seen it on something that glamorizes it, I don't really know anything about it. Yeah. So break down Ranger School just a little bit more than like we don't eat and we walk for it.
So Ranger School, the Army calls it their premier leadership school, but essentially...
And you had graduated West Point when you went into Ranger School?
I graduated West Point in Ranger School. So every infantry lieutenant is expected to go to Ranger School.
Okay.
It's the fundamentals of infantry. It's all it is basic platoon tactics.
Okay.
You have a platoon, you walk for 20 miles, you execute a mission, you win the mission, and then you walk yourself out, right? Okay. That's infantry. That's what they do. And so it's a school where they test your mettle. They really do. They test the skills that you've learned up to this point. So I was an artillery officer, and typically artillery guys don't go to Ranger School.
Okay.
But that was the minimum requirement to get into the regiment as a fire sport officer to go to Ranger School.
So you had to.
At West Point, 22-year-old lieutenant, training for months. I'm in shape. If there's a time to go, it's now.
Yeah.
So you show up. The first week is called RASP week, so Ranger Assessment Selection Phase, where they just basically make you do push-ups and fight and run obstacle courses and pass all these tests every day.
Okay.
It's a suck week. There were a lot of guys that I saw that were there that were physically superior to me. That I'd witnessed them in training and I knew them, and being there in like day 3, like watching them do the duffel bag drag, I'm like, screw this, I'm out of here.
They were.
Yeah, and you're just in the front leaning rest position doing push-ups, like, hey man, I'll see you in a couple months. Like,
all right.
And that's just it. And as long as you don't quit, you're good.
Yeah.
So then you do that week, and then you have the basic patrolling phase, which is squad level patrolling.
Okay.
And that's in Fort Benning, Georgia. So you're in and around the woods, and you're walking anywhere between 10 to 25 miles a day, running a mission or 2.
All right.
And you get 1 meal a day, which is 1 MRE. And
all right.
And then you do that, right? And you're burning thousands of calories a day. So
that 1 hour.
So I started at 190 pounds, right?
Okay.
In like 5% body fat, I was a freaking machine.
Yeah.
And then you go from Fort Benning, Georgia to Dahlonega, Georgia, which is the mountain phase.
Okay.
Where you're up on the Continental Divide on the Appalachian Trail, and you've moved from squad, which is 9 men, to a platoon, which is 36.
Okay.
So they increase your scope of patrol by 4 while putting you on the side of a mountain in the dark.
Okay.
You do some climbing skills and everything else like that. That's where I learned to hate climbing. They have Mount Yonah, which is there where you're learning just basic, rappelling and mountain climbing techniques. And it was freezing cold, and I didn't like it, and I haven't really ever been able to climb since.
Okay.
So then you do that, and then once you get done with mountains, then you go to Florida. So you drive to an airfield, you get in a plane, you jump into Eglin Air Force Base in Florida.
Yep.
I think it's Camp Merrill is what it is down there. I could be wrong. It's been a while. And then you do platoon level operations in Florida for 10 days. So you run around every day, and then you get tasks. They'll just say, hey, you call your roster number, Charlie 285, like, it's your turn. And my turn. And then you're the platoon leader, platoon sergeant, or the squad leader.
Okay, so you just take turns running different positions?
Yeah.
So you kind of know everything that happens? Yeah,
every day they do a swap, but typically the officers get the platoon leader, platoon sergeant positions, and the enlisted guys get the squad leaders or maybe a platoon sergeant.
Okay.
Because they're testing the skills that everybody's supposed to have.
Totally.
So if you're going to be a platoon leader in the infantry, you're expected to lead a platoon in Ranger School.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I got my first one was a platoon leader in Florida. Mission was crazy, and it was the one mission where they bring in helicopters to come pick you up, and then all your buddies who were in flight school that you graduated with show up with a bag of like McDonald's, and they're just eating McDonald's burgers in the back of the helicopter as they're taking you to the next spot.
Okay.
And the birds canceled on us, so morale was super low, and that was my patrol. So I got that one, and then the very last mission is Santa Rosa Island, and you've been out in the woods for now 2 months. Not eating, you don't really see any colors or anything, and then they put you on this beach at, I think it's like Fort Walton Beach or somewhere near Eglin Air Force Base, and they put you on these Zodiac boats, and you're seeing people in bars and everything else, and like, everybody's either got their go or their no-go, so everybody's like kind of halfway doing their thing. You got to paddle out to this island to execute a mission, and you're done.
Okay.
And they called me like right before that mission to be a platoon sergeant. And I was like, oh man, I didn't get my go. They're giving me a second shot. So I was like hustling and doing my thing. Ended up getting my go. Actually ended up getting 2 goes in Florida.
Okay.
And then you graduate Ranger School, and I went in at 190 pounds, and I came out at 154 pounds.
Wow.
In 60 days.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And then you're just in such calorie deficit that 2 weeks later I weighed 215 pounds.
So just everything you ate, your body just continued to store it. It was like, oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, in a single setting, I had a 5-pound bag of animal crackers.
Oh my God. All right.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's bad.
Yeah, all right.
When I got to my first unit, I was chunky.
Yeah.
And then I started getting back in shape, and people were like, dude, do you have cancer or something? Like, you're like, no, I'm just losing my baby ranger weight. You know.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I served in the 1st Striker unit in the Army under Captain Tegmeyer at the time.
All right.
So we had the first 4 Strikers in the Army, and we were like the poster children for
what
the Strikers are those new 8x8 vehicles that everybody drove around.
I thought so. I put some on a few planes.
Yeah, so we were the first guys to put them on planes and do all the airline missions with them and stuff. And so we went to NTC, did all those training rotations and
was that 2001, 2002?
It was 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, 2002 into 2003.
And you were in school in 2001, finished, and then joined, essentially?
When you graduate from West Point, you have to serve 5 years in the military.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it was just a smooth
right in. You get your orders. You don't really ever leave the uniform. You do your thing.
Gotcha.
So I spent my first 9 months there. I had the first Striker that was made for fire support. Got to do all the product testing. It was rad. It was such a good time.
I'm sure.
And we just gone all the time doing training missions and stuff with the vehicles.
Okay.
Fun. As soon as I could, I applied my packet to the regiment. You know, crazy. No, I'm not even going to relay that here. But the story about how like they weren't going to let me go because we got a new battalion commander and this unit was deploying to Iraq the following year, and I was like, no, I'm going to the regiment. And so I ended up brokering a deal, and I got into the regiment. Went to selection in summer 2003. Got picked up. Landed in Alpha.
What's that mean? You went to the selection?
So for officers, you go to enlisted guys go to a program called RASP, the RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program.
Okay.
And then officers and senior enlisted go to a program called ROPE, Ranger Orientation Program, but it's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit different. It's more of a gentleman's course, but still, you got to pass all your physical aptitude tests, psychological evaluations, all your training exercises, take all your courses, and then pass your board interviews.
So it's a more scholastic version of what you were going.
It's physically intensive.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like the first 2 days they do, psychological evaluations on you.
Okay.
Which is kind of where I started learning about emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Because the first 2 days, you're literally like, would you rather be a florist or a mechanic? Do you like pink or purple? Like, do you ever feel rubber bands squeezing your head? Like it's just weird questions, and you're just answering them.
That's cool.
And then the psych is there. They give you this test, and then you're doing, like, every morning you got to pass some sort of physical evaluation, and you're doing shooting courses. You got to do an airborne jump. You got to learn about how the Rangers do operations. You're just doing a whole bunch of stuff, and they're evaluating you the whole time as you're in this course.
Okay.
And then right before you go into your board interview, which is like the last thing of the last day, like, oh, you got a psychological evaluation. Like, oh, I'm good. Right? Like,
yeah.
I'm G.I. Joe, man. I freaking slammed everything my entire life. Like, I worked for everything I got. Like,
yeah.
I made it through, and then they bring you this little broom, and they sit you down, and, like, this guy opens up this packet, and that dude broke me down to the core of my being.
Oh, man.
He told me stuff about myself that I wouldn't figure out for another 10 years.
Like what? You don't have to...
No. I mean, I'd say, like, the one thing that he told me is, like, you don't know the word empathy. Like, you have no empathy.
Wow.
I didn't even know what the word meant.
That's huge.
Right, so think about this. Like,
that's crazy that they're teaching you about how you don't know empathy, and you're going to be a soldier.
In the most heavy-hitting attack.
Yeah.
Like, so... And it's like, it's a drawback, and he hammered me in this, like, interview for, like, a half an hour on my lack of empathy. And, like, to be honest, I didn't have it. Like, I didn't grow up easy. I worked really hard for what I got. If you didn't get it, it's because you didn't work for it. Like, whatever. Like, that was my attitude at the time.
That's a lot of people's attitude.
Yeah. And I just didn't have empathy toward other people.
Okay.
Like, I grew up hard.
Yeah.
Like, I worked my way out of it. Whatever, dude. It's on you.
Yeah.
And then so now I'm rocked in this interview, and then he gets up, And then like he walks you to the door of your board meeting, then he goes in and talks to the board and tells them all the things that are going to psychologically upset you. And then you go into this board meeting and like these like at 4 senior NCOs and an officer, they're like judging it's the pivotal moment of your career, and they're asking you all these questions that are specifically honed in at like getting right at your core. It was tough. Like anyway, I got selected.
No, that's really interesting. I've never heard anything like that.
And I guess the question they asked and the way they asked it in the interview is, have you ever asked, your soldiers or people to do something that you're not willing to do? And the answer to that is no.
Yeah.
Right? Just no. Like, if you're going to do it, like I can do it.
Yeah.
I'll be willing to do it.
Always.
Yeah. That's the one specific question I remember where like I knew they were going right after me, and that was like right at the beginning. But I don't think they asked it to teach me empathy. I think they asked it to upset me.
Totally.
And like to see how I responded to that.
They're like, here's your weakness.
Yeah.
You don't even know what this word means.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, I'm supposed to feel that too?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But like the universe shows you everything you're supposed to, and like I don't know if you have on posts in the Air Force, but they have those little signs in the center of the road, like word of the month. Literally, I drive back on a post after selection to go grab my stuff from my conventional unit, and like the word of the month is empathy. I'm like, God, I gotta learn about this, because the universe is showing me something. And I got to the regiment, did our initial training cycle, went to Afghanistan, and I learned empathy.
Oh yeah.
And we deployed. It's called Operation Winter Strike. So any Rangers of that era know this deployment, and they will describe it as the toughest deployment, because it was 1 of 2 times in history they deployed all 3 battalions to the same AO.
Okay.
For a mission, and our job was to go up to these high altitude mountain villages and to deny Al Qaeda fighters winter safe havens.
Okay.
We were going after the baddest of the bad and the deepest of the deep. Like, we took our trucks, we drove them to BFE, and then we got in the helicopters from BFE and then flew up into the mountains. Like,
wow. Okay.
If you guys are familiar with the movie Restrepo, the Korengal Valley.
Definitely.
We were the first real guys in there, and then the valleys beyond that.
Wow.
And it was interesting because like those people, they lived the hardest life I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And they were super nice to us.
Wow.
They fed us like everything they had for the winter. And we were there like middle of December, a couple feet of snow, freezing our butts off. It was to the point where a helicopter hovered over and then kicked out gloves and gaiters to us, because we just had the standard conventional like cold army gear, and we were freezing.
Wow.
And we got outdoor research gloves and gaiters, and it was a huge game changer for us. So I came back from that deployment. I had a fiance at the time.
Okay.
She, while I was gone on deployment, she got orders to deploy to Iraq because she was in the military too.
Okay.
It's Christmas, in between deployments. Like, she left. She found out she was pregnant with our daughter, Estella, in Iraq. And then flew her home.
Yeah.
Then we got married.
Okay.
And then I left 3 days later.
Oh my God.
And that was, that was a tough deployment too. So if you guys are familiar with Pat Tillman, like that was my unit.
Okay.
That was my company.
Okay.
That all went down on that deployment. So that was a tough deployment. We're gone for a couple of months, came back, because Ranger deployments are shorter. They're higher intensity, but they're much shorter.
Totally. How long generally?
They go anywhere from a month to 6 months.
Okay.
It really depends on what the mission set is.
Yeah.
And then back for a month, and then I left again for another 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
And my daughter was supposed to be born in October. She was born September 11th, 2004.
Okay.
I got the satellite phone tossed at me on my bunk. It's like, hey, you're going to be a dad.
Oh, wow.
Great. All right, so I was in the hood of a Humvee listening to my daughter being born.
That's how you want to hear it.
Yeah. And we were coming back 2 weeks later. We didn't really have much going.
Okay.
My commander's like, hey, your NCO can take care of your job. Not a big deal. Like, get yourself home. So I smuggled myself on a contractor bird and got myself all the way home. And
nice.
It was cool.
What was your security clearance?
My security clearance was a TS SCI, so top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information. So top.
Is that all Rangers TS?
All Rangers go through a top secret clearance.
They don't necessarily get it.
I'm pretty sure that all Rangers get it.
Okay.
But then the SCI, the sensitive compartmentalized information, is because I was the commander's right-hand man. Okay. So I controlled all the big guns for every fight. So I went to every mission brief, knew the guys, where we were going, what we were doing. And so I was exposed to some information that most people don't get.
Totally.
At a very, very high level. And so I had my TS SCI clearance.
When
Get home 3 days later, show up enough time to take my daughter home from the hospital.
Yeah.
go through another couple deployments. This is the time when we were really feeling out the air power in support of the ground mission.
Okay.
Was the way to go. They didn't have enough JTACs or Air Force guys to really support that mission for the Rangers, and so they started sending Rangers to
Fill that
for that training. So I went to the Joint Firepower course in Vegas. It's a 2-week course.
Okay.
Air Force is awesome because they don't believe in putting people up in bad digs, and they put us down on the Strip in a hotel. And I had a weekend off, so my wife, flew down, came home with our second child, and it's just, hey man, Rangers, it happens. So now that was, I can't remember what time frame that was, and then, so that was late 2004, early 2005, deployed to Iraq, to Mosul, and at the time we were going after Abu Mazab Zarqawi and his top lieutenants in northern Iraq, and like that mission, that was 6 months of like missions on fire, and we were tearing that country apart. Like we were catching everybody. Okay. And it was good. Like we did a great job. Top day, we ran 13 missions in one day.
Wow.
Yeah, we nailed a top dude, and then the network lit up, and then we went after everybody in the network, and it was non-stop for about 48 hours. But we ran 13 missions in one day.
What's that look like? What's that like? You wake up at what time? I'm assuming you don't sleep that day.
So most Rangers, when we work downrange, we don't work during the day.
Okay.
We just
that makes sense.
Like that's the deal. And so you'll wake up at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. You'll go get a workout, go have dinner, which is then your breakfast.
Okay.
Then you go into your mission briefs for the night, wait for the cycle of darkness, go out, go do your mission. You're back by 3 or 4 in the morning. You're cleaning up gear as the sun comes up, and then you go back to sleep.
Okay.
And then you just repeat.
On a day where you're humping 13 different missions, are you like getting picked up by another vehicle and taken somewhere else, or did you guys have access to a vehicle? Were you walking the whole way, birds, or what was that like?
No, when we go somewhere, we're all self-supporting with vehicles and aircraft.
Okay.
So when you have a mission that rolls out, you get your full first mission brief, and then you get what's known as the FRAGO, the fragmentary order, where somebody will say, go to this grid coordinate. They'll send you all the graphics for what the target set looks like, and then it's just game on. Okay. And everybody there is then relying on their institutional knowledge and standard operating procedures to execute the mission safely. Okay. And it's just hit after hit after hit, and like we were literally filling up the detention centers.
Wow.
Like we overfilled them because we were just snagging so many people. Okay. But it was what it was. Like that's just how it works.
That was your job.
Yeah, and when you're on a roll like that, you stay on a roll, because like once you hit one guy and everybody starts working, then like you just keep going.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then everybody's pushing one another, and sustained a couple injuries that day, but nobody got hurt. Okay. Or nobody got killed. We had a couple helicopter pilots get shot.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which weird. Like you're watching a little bird fall from the sky with 4 of your dudes on the side of it, and then watching the helicopter pilots like pull it out and then fly their wounded selves back.
Oh wow.
To the hospital and like land, and then the guys who are on the skids are carrying the pilots out, and like I have nothing but love for task force pilots.
That's insane.
They're amazing human beings, and I couldn't do enough for them. So, wow. But that's just how that was just the lifestyle then.
Yeah.
Came back from that deployment, and throughout all my deployments, I started to see some uniformities in the fact that like we were catching teenage boys. Right, and they were teenage boys who were leveraged by people with money and power, who were just ferried across borders, given guns, given hand grenades, and they're just told to kill Whitey. Okay. And that was basically it. Totally.
One of the things that I love about, I watched your TED Talk, I read your book multiple times actually. I love the stories of you, seeing the little girl that you gave a pencil to. Mm-hmm. I cried when I read that story. It breaks you. It gives you an understanding of a different place that you can't really get here in America. It just doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So are there I know of 2 that I read that I was really touched by, but were there countless you said teenage boys?
Yeah, teenage boys. That's all they were. It was like
so you were over there kind of learning empathy.
Well, it's like you got to catch a fighter. It's totally. kill or be killed. Totally. Like you get it. Yeah. Like you start looking back and like, is this really worth a national level asset to go catch teenagers? Yeah. I would argue no.
Yeah.
Right? Like we...
Totally.
No. And then, you know, every now and then you get like a wrong target house. Like somebody just gives you a bad grid, bad intel, like it happens. And then, you know, you roll into somebody else's house in the middle of the night, you blow their gates off the hinges, you blow their doors off, you roll in, you snatch up a kid's dad, their mom, they're handcuffed on the floor, kids are screaming and crying, and like, that's the image that kid is always going to have
Of America.
of America.
Yeah.
They're going to have that.
Yeah.
Totally an accident.
Totally.
You can't take that back.
No.
Right? And so there's between like catching these kids, having incidences, like, man, we're not spreading the good love here. Like we're not like, this isn't, you know, freeing Europe from Nazi Germany. Like we're not doing that. Like we're putting a very different face out in a country where that's all they're going to know of us.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you say or what you did, it's how you made people feel. And I think that we know how we made people feel when we were doing all those missions. And it can't be all touchy-feely in war, but like you have to start having these thoughts. And, you know, so the conclusion is like, as long as we're over there doing that in uniform and carrying guns and women are giving birth to kids, like this war is endless.
Totally.
It's not going to stop.
Totally.
At all.
Yeah.
It's going to go on.
You can't keep
forever.
punching someone in the face and being like, I just want to help you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You can't. It doesn't make sense. And that's what I absolutely love about your message. You're like, you can't drop bombs. You got to give them business. You got to make friends. You can only make friends if you're trading. That is something that I feel like is missing from the veteran voice. So that's one thing that I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You can say it better than I can.
Well, I mean, it's like, the job of the Army is to fight and win the wars.
Totally.
That's the job of the Army. That's what our country expects of us.
I expect us to have a military. We're always going to have a military. There's always going to be bad guys that want to hurt somebody.
Yeah. And, you know, they brief over it at school in sociology of like the McDonald's theory of like two countries that have McDonald's have never gone to war. And they cover in like one class for like 10 minutes. But nobody ever talks about like what's beyond the forest in the military.
Yeah.
You get in, you do your job, don't ask any questions, don't talk about politics, don't do all of these things, but like you're subject to it all with your friends and your family and everybody else, and then you've got to come home and deal with the ramifications afterward.
Totally.
So artillery captain, had this rock star Super Bowl job, loved it, and so I had a couple different options. One is go back to the artillery, which I just, after running in an organization like that, I couldn't do it. Like it would have driven me crazy.
Yeah.
Transfer to infantry, so be an infantry officer with the hopes of, you know, going back to the Ranger Regiment as an infantry officer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not something I really felt compelled to do, or going special forces and spending 2 years in selection, going through that, and then being gone. And I was already gone from my family enough, like didn't see the end of the war. I'm like, hey, this is not going to be well for us. So my wife and I both decided to get out. So we got out in 2006.
Okay.
Still harbored a ton of animosity toward the countries in which I fought.
Okay.
Yeah, because I saw a lot of badness, and I had to equate it to, you know, the cops say, you know, they have a poor view of humanity because all they see is the worst of humanity every day.
Yeah.
And that was just my experience. And so I held a lot of anxiety and like anger
Totally.
toward Afghanistan and Iraq, regardless of it, and not seeing anything coming out positive.
You kind of embodied the message that you've been given, and because I mean that's what we're told. We're told the bad guys are over there.
Yeah.
So you get to that country and you're like, all right, here's the bad guys.
Yeah.
So.
And it's one house full of bad guys and a neighborhood of really good people.
Totally.
That's just
totally.
That's just what it is, right? And it's how it happens. First job offered to me was a home builder for, you know, a construction company here as a site supervisor. Did my thing, started working back into family life, and, you know, standard, like drank too much, probably smoked too much weed, and like did all those other things that most veterans do when they get out, and like really didn't know what was, you know, going on. Market crash 2008 happens, lose my job, end up getting when you're in the Rangers, if you're a fire support officer, you're also the headquarters platoon leader, which means you have medics underneath you, the medical guys. So I love medicine. You know, always loved working with those dudes. If we had a casualty evacuation, it was typically my job to bring the aircraft in and out. So I was really like tuned up on, hey, we got to get these guys treated quickly and get them out so that we can get back to fighting. Okay. And I knew enough about medical and rescue to talk my way into a job for a small company in Seattle called Remote Medical International.
Okay.
And their job was to put clinics and doctors and export and import pharmaceuticals and narcotics for professionals working in foreign or difficult environments.
Okay.
And this is the rise of the contractor boom in 2008 with the Obama administration. All these contractors going downrange, and they need medics, supplies, and medicines. And like this company wanted to go after that business. Like I knew a lot of people in the community, so they hired me to run the sales for that job.
Okay.
So I started traveling all over Afghanistan, Jordan, Sudan, Kenya, DRC, like doing all of these things. And when I showed up, I was just Griff.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
yeah, you're just a dude.
Just a dude.
Yeah.
Like laptop,
yeah,
briefcase, some cash, and I had to get my job done.
Yeah.
And what I found really quickly was that, and just being a map guy, looking at a map is like when you're buying a house, like where's all the crime in an area, right? And you look at like, okay, I'm not going to live in this area because that's where all the crime's at. Well, I was like, okay, where are all the attacks and nastiness happening? And what I found out was like all the attacks happen around military bases, embassies, and the press.
Oh, weird.
Right? Like, yeah, that's where all they happen. Like outside of that, like these countries are relatively safe, actually safer than some areas in America, which is always my metric when my wife told me like, hey, you're going to go here. Like, well, let's go look at this city in America, how many murders they had happen this weekend versus how many deaths happened in an active war zone. And in America, we 2x any of those numbers on average.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I found is that anywhere where there was small business was where I would go and stay safe.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd make friends with a restaurant owner, hotel owner, whatever, and I would stay with them, use their brother as their driver, fixer, pay them cash, bring them opportunity, and they kept me safe. It was rad. And I got to see sides of the country, specifically Afghanistan, that I never got to see because I was in uniform and had that weapon between me.
You were able to make friends.
Make friends and with the other person.
Yeah.
I just absolutely fell in love with the country. I fell in love with the people. And long story short, I ended up in a combat boot factory in Kabul that was built to make combat boots for the Afghan National Army.
Yeah. I was wondering because you talk about that trip where you were there, you made the phone call and you're like, hey, I think we're going to start making shoes of some sort, flip-flops maybe. What you were there for that medical mission, that job? Yeah,
so on that trip I was there to sell like first aid kits to the Afghan military.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't know this, but like we built a 340,000 person police and military force in Afghanistan. US taxpayers funded that.
Of course.
Yeah. And so they need to get outfitted with uniforms, boots, and they need a little med kit.
Of course.
And they
nice.
Get injured and killed 2 to 3 times as much as American soldiers, so they have more of a need for it than we do. And so my job was to go there and to sell these really simple kits that could stop bleeding from traumatic injuries.
Okay.
This conference was typically populated. The sales guys were all retired sergeant majors, and like they knew all the other sergeant majors, and so it was the good old boys club. And I had like long hair and a beard, and like nobody's talking to me because I have long hair and a beard, and I was an officer.
Yeah.
And there was another dude who had long hair and a beard. Nobody's talking to him. And turns out he was an officer too. We just made friends.
All right.
And he was running a combat boot factory in Afghanistan. And like in the process of building this factory, he had enough money to buy a really badass espresso machine.
Okay.
And you drink a lot of tea and Nescafe in Afghanistan.
Totally.
Excuse me. I was like, I just want a cup of coffee. So I went by his factory the next day, and I saw the first positive thing I'd ever seen from the war. Like tons of people working, stories of illiterate people being taught how to read, how to sew, how to make shoes, families coming back that were working in China and Pakistan, and now to be able to work in this factory and be with their families because this opportunity was there. It's like, oh, this is amazing. The whole concept of, a lot of people hear the phrase, but they don't know what it means, but swords to plowshares.
Yeah.
So after, whatever, before rifles were invented, after people went to war, you had all this steel made from swords, and then they would take all that steel and they would melt it down and they would turn it into plow blades to farm fields to create and to grow after the fact. So it's, after every war, there's got to be a destruction of the military materials and an opportunity toward growth. And like, I saw it happening right there.
That is amazing.
I was like, this is fucking cool. So like, saw combat flip-flop,
yeah.
And like a lot of people don't know how that product was evolved, but Afghanistan's full of Muslims, right? And so per Islamic law, you pray 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And the rituals, you have to take off your shoes and wash your hands, wash your feet,
totally.
And then you pray.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get give a fuck who you are. Like, taking your combat boots on and off 5 times a day is a total pain in the ass.
Yes.
And now think about it too. Now you're in a culture of where over half of the incoming Army was illiterate, and they've grown up in a culture with no shoes, so they've never actually been taught how to tie shoelaces.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's intense.
We're training an army of young illiterate kids who've never been taught how to tie shoelaces, and now they have to take their boots on and off 5 times a day. They were losing tens of thousands of training hours a day because of shoelaces.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, so John, the factory manager, John, the factory manager was like, hey man, well, let's make a product that, you know, can be culturally acceptable and, you know, can get the job done, but when they go out in the field, they can wear combat boots. So we developed this combat flip-flop, and that was the product that I saw on the table, and
Okay.
that's how we started.
Did it look anything like your combat flip-flop?
No, not really. I mean, it looked close enough, but it had like a really thick, beefy sole.
Yeah,
you know,
I would
leather,
assume it's a little bit
with the leather
more
deck
than-
and more of like a coyote, like brown leather upper.
less prepared for Starbucks.
Less prepared for Starbucks. Yes, it was a rougher product, but it would
Totally.
have been a product that would have got the job done.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but we knew that an American consumer would want something a little bit more svelty and smooth
And shiny.
sexy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. That's the illiterate part. I understood that illiteracy is much more rampant there, but not that is kind of the target market for our military. Like, oh, you just graduated high school, why don't you just enlist? Come on over.
Yeah.
We have recruiters in high schools. So it makes sense to me when I think about it, but usually I don't think about that.
Yeah.
So
like if you want an education, like think about college costs these days.
totally.
How are you going to go to college in America if you come from an underprivileged family?
That's why I joined. I was like,
Yeah.
well, they're going to pay for my school? All right. Well,
Yeah.
let's see what that's about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know if you're going to want to cut this out of here, but like if
I'll cut whatever I need to.
I remember, you know, when I got out and I was just like surfing through some like anti-war art and everything else like that.
Totally.
And there was this image, it was on red, and it was a young boy holding a pistol going like this. And on the top it says, college, period. We bet you're willing to kill to go. And it was a DOD logo in the bottom right. And I was just like, oh, fuck. Like, how true is that?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we I wouldn't say force, but we make it like an exceptionally viable option.
Not anymore. We did.
We did.
Did you see anybody using drugs in the military? Like, what was whether it's prescription drugs or, you know, abuse of that or illicit drugs, whatever?
I never, not
No?
once,
No?
saw anybody using drugs in the military.
Wow.
I mean, occasionally you'd have a guy come back, like after a weekend party and getting back, and yeah, he'd get pissed hot for coke or for pot.
Totally.
And they were under the influence working.
Yeah.
I never saw that once.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just think in our community,
Yeah.
like we hold such a high physical standard,
Totally.
such a high, moral standard, that when you do that, like the person is excommunicated quickly. Like as soon as it happens, that person is gone. They're not even around.
They're not even accepted within the community, let alone if someone came back and said, oh man, I was just smoking weed the other night, the community itself, before they even pissed hot, you guys would just excommunicate them.
Yeah, they're just the PNG. Like it's life in the regiment.
Yeah, I assume so, but I've never been to that, school or that level of military or whatnot. So I'm interested because I'm doing an episode on drugs in the military, and just doing the research for that, I'm like, wow, this is insane. Because up until the 80s, it was just the norm.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I've got a lot of friends who served in the conventional military as well, and they told me how challenging the issues were, and I could understand it. I mean, you got a bunch of 18, 19 to 22-year-old males who should be at the prime of their life, like at home, having a good heyday, and now they're stuck inside the wire with nothing but dudes, getting shot at and injured, watching their friends get hurt.
Yeah.
And they just got a lot of downtime in between. Like, what else are you going to do? Like, the Army's not going to help you through counseling or deal with your problems then. Their whole thing is, I'm just going to numb the shit out of it until I got to go out again. And that's what I understand of it, but I never saw it myself.
Totally. When you got out, you said it took you 10 years to kind of learn that you didn't know empathy.
I would say like it took me about 4 months to like learn what it meant, but to really embrace it.
Yeah.
Like and to work my way through it, I would say it probably took me another like 7-8 years.
Yeah. So you were out by that time. You would transition to being a civilian. Was it difficult for you to look back and like did you have any sort of like I don't want to say regrets, but were you hard on yourself in any way?
I'd have to say like empathy and connection back to experience after really embracing it. Like I am hesitant with some interactions that I have with people that I knew in the veteran space when I run into them, because I know I was probably a little bit harder than I needed to be.
Okay.
It really wasn't taking their life situation into account.
Okay.
Again, at the same time, that's not the regiment. The regiment is
Totally.
your job.
Yeah,
You're supposed to, like, your life is your life. Like, don't let it interfere with your job.
Totally.
So I have apologized to a few people.
Okay.
Like, hey man, I'm sorry I was really hard on you there, but like they're like, dude, we get it.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
it was just part of it.
you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And like now, like you can grow into like more mature people, and I definitely had an issue with it getting out of the military into civilian work, because I still didn't really embrace it. Like after everything we'd been through, showing up at a civilian job and somebody's whining and bitching about like having mayonnaise on their burger after.
Yeah.
They ask the person not to, and they're freaking out about it. And you're like, dude, just ask him for another sandwich. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And kind of like getting short-tempered around stuff like that, and just feeling the need to disclose to people like how fortunate they have it here in America, and they should really quit bitching and be nicer about the blessings that they have.
Totally.
So that was tough. And then you're come out of a special operations environment where you're surrounded by dudes. Now I've got a wife and 2 daughters, and now I got I have to say my daughters are probably the thing that really encouraged empathy. Like the kids make you like think through those challenges when you're a dick or you're short-tempered, and you see you hurt your feelings, and then you're like, oh dude, I hurt my little girl's feelings. Like,
you don't want that.
Yeah, you figure it out, right? And you figure it out really quickly.
Okay.
But I'd say like my first experiences in Afghanistan tipped it off, learning empathy, and then my daughters have reinforced that with me every day since.
That makes total sense. Your relationship, you were engaged, you had a kid on the way, you were deployed, it was all, essentially just thrown into a dryer and like, all right, pull your life out whenever it works. What was that like trying to maintain a relationship, and how did that relationship change once you transitioned to civilian life, you and your wife?
So on paper, my wife and I were like the perfect power couple. She was a West Point graduate as well, intelligence officer, badass athlete.
Okay.
Like most young military people do, you rush into decisions and you make big life choices under like the positions of highest stress, which I counsel young guys on this now. It's like, look, like if you love this person, like a lot of guys make decisions because they're afraid of like getting shot down range, and they want the person they love to be taken care of.
Totally.
Like I totally understand that. You're gonna make that decision. My recommendation is always like, look, man, you gotta like, you can name them as your beneficiary on your SGLI.
Totally.
Yeah, but they might not get your benefits.
Yeah.
But unless you have a kid with them, like you should really just wait until you get out of the military, settle down, because graduate from high school and your parents were telling you how to be, your teachers were telling you how to be, then you go into the Army, then the Army's telling you how to be.
Totally.
And then you get out of the Army, and then you find out who you really are.
Nice.
Like it's, you look back on that time of your life, and it's just, do not be ashamed of it. You might have made some mistakes. Like forgiveness is a big thing, something I'm still working on, like right now, today.
Totally.
You got to forgive yourself. Forgive your parents, forgive your spouse, forgive God. Like whatever you got to forgive, like it's a really thing that you got to like let go of.
Yeah. So
that way you can really figure out who you're going to be for the rest of your life.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's just got to figure out who you are, who you're going to be. I forgot how we got on that conversation there. Yeah.
No, I like that.
So we were talking about my wife. So
yeah.
We got out, and then we were like forced into a small apartment together. 2 kids in an 800 square foot apartment, getting out of the military. I was 03, combat pay, jump pay, hazardous duty pay, all tax free for years on end, right?
Yeah.
So I was making bank, and like I built poor spending habits, as a young officer, because I thought I was going to die. Like, shit, I'm going to buy a motorcycle, I'm going to buy a car, whatever. Like everybody does it, that's fine.
Totally.
But then, when you transition to the civilian world, it's much harder to make a living and earn your value because people aren't paying you to work out every day. They're not feeding you 3 square meals, and they're not paying you a decent amount of money to go out and hang out with your friends and do like some, at the time, fun or challenging work, right? And
Totally.
It's a much different experience in the civilian world. And so, we had over 50%, actually a 75% pay cut because my wife was serving as well, and she went to no job, and so we had to shrink everything down, and we were living in a tight space, and we started really figuring out who we were as people, and it was challenging. We divorced.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Great person.
Yeah.
Great shared experiences.
Totally.
We have amazing children. Learned a lot, but it just didn't work.
The transition, you just learned and changed.
Yeah.
The both of you, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I know we struggled for years trying to meet each other's needs as we were growing into people that we were, but eventually, we made young decisions as 24, 25-year-old people. We made some decisions that put a lot of hefty responsibility on us, i.e. our children. But then still at the same time, too, you got to be happy as a person. You need to be with a partner that makes you feel fulfilled and loved.
Totally.
And cared for. I'm not telling anybody who's getting out and having these struggles to get a divorce.
Yeah.
10 years of counseling, you got to leave it all in the field and do what's right for your family.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, we just said, hey, we're killing each other to try to meet each other's needs, and we ended up divorcing.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I've been divorced twice, so I ran into the got to my first base, was like, hey, you're pretty awesome, let's get married, and not live in the dorms and do all the things that married couples do. Let's do that. That sounds way better. I want to do an episode on just love or marriage in the military, because it's separate than the civilian world. I have to explain that it's incentivized, your pay's doubled, love isn't necessarily the same exact love in the civilian and military. So
you do it to get out of a place of uncomfortability.
Totally.
Who wants to live in the stinky old World War II barracks versus get paid, to be married with somebody, have a couple kids, get more pay.
Yeah.
And then live in a nice house.
Yeah. It was nice. It was great. But I was too young and not nearly ready to be married at 21 or 23. Mm-hmm. So I understand and empathize for what you went through there. So you worked construction that was your first job when you got out?
Construction, and then I went to Remote Medical International, had the idea in 2009, sat on it for a little bit, started doing some consulting work for some product development companies, because I could speak operator, I'm an engineer.
Totally.
And I could help the companies make products better for the operator and shorten the timeline between concept to fielding. And I had access to these units where I could actually get gear in and have them test it and break it and give feedback.
That's cool.
So I got paid to do that for a number of years, and then I ended up working for a laundry company of all things. But it was a company where we licensed this big washing machine that was made for cleaning hockey equipment and large materials, and then we licensed it for the DoD, and then what we were doing is we were going and we were cleaning all special operations gear.
All right.
So all the Patagonia jackets and everything that are really expensive, and the Army or the Air Force, you get a hole in it, throw it away.
Oh yeah.
You're no, that's $1,000 jacket. We can repair it, clean it, and put it back in stock.
Nice.
It's reusable.
Okay.
So I helped start a company that did that. I did that for a few years.
Nice.
And then eventually I just went full-time into combat flip-flops when it really started picking up.
So obviously one of your best friends we can see on Shark Tank from the military.
Yeah.
What was the experience that, or maybe it wasn't just one, maybe it was a multiple, but what were the experiences that brought you two together?
So Lee, he's an interesting story. Skate punk out of LA, very similar background, divorced parents, was living on his own a lot. He was a computer programmer in the late 90s during the dot-com boom. Okay. And then September 11th happened. He joins on a 3-year Ranger contract. And when you do that, you're never going to go to Ranger school. Essentially, you have enough time to go through basic training, go through airborne school, go through RIP, get to your unit, and serve about 1.5 years, maybe, before you start transitioning out. So you're...
Oh, wow.
So you're just, you're there to serve your time, which is, anybody who wants to do that,
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But he was never put in a position of responsibility, because he was never ever going to be in a position of responsibility. So he was PFC Lee, which then turned into private first class,
which
then turned into specialist Lee. But the dude's got no fear. and I'm a young cherry lieutenant. You know, he just got back from the invasion of Iraq, so everybody's walking around with their chest out and scrolls and stereo on both sides. And
Totally.
I'd come up with a mission brief and I'd say something stupid. He's like, "Hey, sir, that's stupid." And like none of the NCOs would say that because it just doesn't happen. I'm like, "All right, do you have a better plan?" And I was never afraid to ask. Like if somebody could do their job better and they told me how to do it, like we'd do it that way.
Cool.
And he'd always come out with like something that made the job easier or faster or more efficient, and we built a relationship that way. But he was always kind of like the perpetual naysayer.
Nice.
And we did that first deployment together in Afghanistan, Winter Strike, where we both suffered significantly.
Okay.
And then he was the fire supporter for Tillman's platoon.
Okay.
So he went through that incident, was right there for it, and so we bonded through that.
Okay.
And then he came back from that deployment, and then it was his time to go. But you know, we just stayed in touch all the time. We'd always talk about like stupid business ideas and whatever. And we always just sat around and just shot shit. And it was very rare for an officer and a junior enlisted guy to build a relationship like that.
Yeah.
And we did, just because he didn't have any fear. I really didn't care. I
love that.
I was the worst. I think one of the worst officers in that aspect.
Because you didn't care about the crossing lines of enlisted officer?
No, I'm a freaking artillery guy in the regiment. I don't care. I'm there for like 2 years max, maybe 3 if I'm good. And I was getting closer to 3. But like, I might come back, maybe. So I really don't care. Like my job is to take care of my guys and to make sure that they've got what they need, whether it's life, physical, or work. Like just support them in doing their job.
Totally.
And we just built a great relationship like that, and we just stayed in touch ever since. He moved back down to LA to move in with his wife and their family. He lived in his in-laws' place for years as he was trying to like put his life back together after the military.
All right.
And we just stayed friends.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you have any other friends that you made in that time that were as good of friends that you still talk to regularly?
My friends from that time, like we'll touch base every now and then. A couple guys that I went to West Point with, we were in the same company in the Ranger Regiment, and we'll see each other at unions or send each other Facebook messages, but nobody like a relationship like that.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, just Rangers are Rangers. Mm-hmm. And just the community getting out, like we touch base, and so I've got some friends from 3rd Battalion or 1st Battalion that I'm really tight with now, or guys that served in the same company but like a few years apart.
Yeah.
And you know the personalities of the people just because of where they served, and like they're just kind of your people.
Yeah.
And so I've built friends that way, just in the Ranger community.
Okay, that's cool. Did it mess with your like psyche? Did it make you feel stronger or more than your West Point? You were broken, so you climbed significantly.
I don't think it messed with the psyche. Like
no?
you know what you want to do in life, and that was one of the things that I wanted to do, and I was exceptionally proud to be there. And when you wear the tan beret and you walk around post, it's a hefty responsibility. One of the charges is wherever you go, it's blatantly apparent that you're the best, and so your boots are always shine, uniform's always pressed, you're always looking tight.
Yeah.
And it's a hefty responsibility to be there because you are representing the best.
Yeah.
The Rangers are the workhorse of the DoD. Like, if you look at the stats since GWAT, they've killed or captured more high-value targets than everybody else combined.
Wow. Okay.
Like they are the dog. Right?
Totally.
Like they're it.
Yeah.
There are a couple other units that are above that, which guys who are more senior in time in the regiment graduate into.
Okay.
And they're a different unit, and they're magical people, love them, and they got a very special mission set.
Yeah.
But as far as like the hammer, and the people's like the way I describe it is like, well, what's the difference between Rangers and SEALs? And I'm like, well, SEALs are like a nice little doctor's surgical role, right? Super tight, highly coordinated team.
Yeah.
Doing very specific missions. Like Rangers are like a dump truck full of sledgehammers. Like,
all right.
We're airfield gangsters and professional kidnappers. That's what we do.
Okay.
Like that's it. Like that is the Ranger Regiment. It just attracts different types of people.
That makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like squashing the fear in one of those nights that you're going out and doing something that I've never done? I don't even know how to describe it, honestly.
I would say that the fear goes away as soon as you step onto the bird.
Yeah.
And you get in the truck. After that, it's just there's a lot of concept now going around talking about flow.
Yeah.
Where you lose space and time and everything's just moving at speed and like all of a sudden you're done with it.
Yeah.
You find yourself into a group flow. There never really seemed to be any fear, whether you get the green light to slide out of the back of a helicopter or the breaching charge goes off to go in through a door or whatever. Like there's really no fear.
Okay.
There's just flow, and like you really feel like you're running with a pack of wolves.
You just talk logistics.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, all right, hey, this is what we're doing right now. Like we are going to win. There is no other option than that. There might be some challenges, but we got a team of us that can work through it together, and that's just how it works.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part about your time in?
I think my favorite part about serving in the military was like after the mission was done, and it's always that moment of, dude, did we just pull it off?
Fair.
And the first time you plan an airfield seizure with the Rangers and you're dumping 500 guys to the ground in a couple minutes, and then you're taking over an airfield in the middle of the night in one cycle of darkness, and you're pulling it off, it's quite spectacular. It's unbelievable. Like when you've got mortars and attack helicopters and AC-130 gunship and A-10 aircraft all working in the same airspace, and you're getting everything to land within 3 seconds, and everything's just clicking and firing, and you hear guys on the radios chatting and executing the mission. You're like, man, we are flowing right now. And then when you get done, everybody's high-fiving and shedding gear, like, yeah, we pulled that off, like just as we planned it. I'd have to say, like, that was my favorite thing. It's like, feel like the A-team, like, I love it when a plan comes together.
Nice.
And that was probably my favorite part about working in the military.
Nice. That makes sense. I was just reading an article this morning. A friend of mine sent it to me, and the Pew, the Pew Foundation. I think it's the foundation. They're one of the main structures or companies, whatever, that do research. They put out tons of studies. One they did recently compared what veterans think of war to what civilians think of war to what actually happens to what politicians think. Right? All very many different variables.
Yeah.
But essentially, like,
Will you send me that study?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
It is phenomenal. Essentially, both civilians and veterans are 60% against war. The further into the Republican Party you get, the more they are pro-war.
Mm-hmm.
But it has almost no interaction with policy.
Correct.
Which is fucking crazy to me.
Yeah.
I don't understand how I don't even feel like Tulsi Gabbard's fully being taken serious.
She's not.
And I don't get it. How do you feel about Tulsi's policy? How do you feel? I mean, you know her. How'd you even come to know her?
I've been following her for a while, and
Yeah.
I got to speak beside her at an event in DC.
Very cool.
And I got to meet her, and she walked up, and I'm like, "You're Tulsi Gabbard," and she's just amazing person, and just got to hang out with her and ask her a few questions. But I think she's when she talks about the math of what we're doing as a nation with war is something that we all need to be cognizant of. Like, American taxpayers need to know, when you look at your pay stub every month, the amount that you pay to the United States government, take half of that and put it toward a war, which has no clear objectives, no end state, and is going to be endless. And so half of that hard-earned money that you're using and paying to the United States government is going toward a system that is insane. We've been doing the same thing over and over and over again since the Vietnam War, and we have not been successful at it. And then, we bring our service members back, and then we're up in arms about them not getting taken care of by the VA. We're up in arms about all their issues. Like, hey man, why don't you just hold your policymakers accountable why don't we do some constitutionally legal conflicts and really figure out what we're doing? And the challenge is I'm guilty of it too. Everybody watches these movies where there's the hero in the story, like all the war movies that are like everybody at the end is the good guy, is the one who kills the most bad people, goes home, and they live happily ever after. It's not how it fucking happens. Like, none of those stories that you see fictionalized in Hollywood, like, a lot of those guys are messed up. A lot of those guys have challenges. They don't talk about the struggling families. They don't talk about the divorces. They don't talk about all the other stress that goes on there, because that wouldn't sell Hollywood tickets.
Totally.
So the majority of people, I think, are for war, and it's not their fault. They've just been conditioned to believe that that's how it is in the military. All the politicians who are in DC and see all the guys walking around with all the fruit salad and all the stars, and they go to all the different memorials and all the different events for veterans, they think, oh, it's this happy glory day, and that's what they've been conditioned to do, and they only think it's good. And there's a lot of business that comes from the military because half of our national potential goes to the Department of Defense and the VA.
Yes.
Like, we really need to think about that. And I really think that her mindset toward, okay, guys, like, we should really scale this back, do what's reasonable, rational, and moral, and take those assets that we're dumping into these conflict areas in which we know we're going to lose it all. Why don't we just spend that at home? Why don't we rebuild our infrastructure? Why don't we focus on education? Why don't we, focus on some social issues here with that resource?
Yeah.
And being in the Northwest, I used to have long hair and a beard, and like living here, it's a very blue area.
Totally.
Right. Well, people know me here as former Army guy. We're in this company called Combat Flip Flops, so they think I'm some closet gun-loving Republican.
Totally.
Like, I like guns a lot. Like, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's fine. And then all of my friends who are on the East Coast who are still serving in red areas, like, oh, he's some, dope smoking hippie, right? And they're like,
Totally.
I couldn't be more like down the middle. Like,
Totally.
it's Yvon Chouinard from Patagonia. He said it best. He says, like, it's always our job to support the person, but it's our duty to question the policy.
Totally.
If we love our service members, if we really want to take care of them and their families, we're going to hold our policymakers accountable to the decisions they make, the dollars they spend, and the places they send our service members.
I love that.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And it should be the duty of every American citizen to make sure we're doing that correctly. And unfortunately, again, I think that people have just been conditioned to think that it's this glorious thing where everybody's going to come out shiny and happy and live the rest of their lives and make the next greatest generation, where we're not doing that. Where they say, don't tell me what your priorities are, show me where you spend your time and money, and those reflect your priorities. And our priorities have been waging wars that really haven't had any clear direction or leadership.
Totally. You are so well spoken. Thank you. Because I think all that, but to say it so simply is really nice. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries. And it's a challenge too, because if we stop the wars, a lot of Americans lose their jobs.
Totally.
And it's the part that nobody really thinks about, because there are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who are making uniforms, they're making boots, they're farmers making materials for soldiers, or they're textile factories, there's metal refineries, there's aircraft manufacturers, there's all these other, there's this whole industry that supports the military, and if we cut back, all those people are going to lose work. Like, hey guys, we can find better things to do with your time and skills.
Totally.
It's going to be challenging, yes. Is it impossible? No. You're Americans, you can figure it out. Like, we can make TVs, we can make cell phones, we can make all these other cool things. We just gotta make it our priority to do so.
Totally. Yeah. I watched a podcast, again, Joe Rogan. I love
Joe Rogan.
I love him so much. He did a podcast with, I think it's Dr. Cornel West. He's a philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about America and how it's a declining superpower.
Okay.
And I love just his perspective, because nobody talks about how it's a declining superpower, how we're not necessarily going to continue to be in first in a decade from now. But for me, because of companies like Combat Flip Flops, I have a lot of hope for America, just in terms of okay, we could be doing all this damage to the earth, society in general, and because it's a corporate country, it can change faster than any other country.
Correct. Yeah.
So as soon as what you're saying, once we do start saying, we need less bombs, those people can start working on something that's much more, helpful to the world.
Green energy, sustainable agriculture, environmental cleanup.
There's so many possibilities.
Yes. Whatever.
Yeah.
We can figure it out.
Yes.
I think a lot more people. I think people would be more satisfied going to work every day, knowing they're contributing positively to the world, not knowing they're making a $1 million cruise missile that's going to get used once, morally or immorally.
Totally. Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. You can't guarantee that. Actually, there's a guy that is getting out under. He doesn't agree with the war.
A conscientious objector.
Yeah, I did not. like he's doing, or he just did, or today he was, told to go out and put this bomb on a plane, and he was like, yeah, but what if it drops on the wrong place? I can't do that. And I was like, well, it's a volunteer force. Why'd you volunteer? But I didn't think about it until I was in there carrying a coffin off the plane, and I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
How do I have a positive effect on this? And that's what led me to like, all right, well, I'm not going to run for office. I don't have a network that would be, useful to anyone, but I know how to use a camera pretty well. So how can I create positive change with the tools that I have? So that was my, combat flip-flop, if you would.
Hold on, dude.
That, how do you bring positive change to the world in general? Using the tools that you have. That was how do I break down that logic to make myself a better person?
Yep.
And I was like, all right, well, I've got a couple cameras,
Yep.
Get to work.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing we learned about the war is a camera's only this big.
Totally.
And whatever people see in that camera is what people understand.
Totally. Yeah.
So if you can change the understanding, well, more power to you.
Totally. And I feel like your message is part of what got me to it should probably be almost anti-war, because if you look at the highest regarded humans in our modern history, that's like Gandhi, Martin Luther King. You're talking about people that are
The Dalai Lama.
totally
Yeah.
just people that are pacifists.
Yep.
They just want people to not get hurt. I was like, well, that I don't want people to get hurt.
Yeah.
That works.
It's so interesting because I think about even up to about 50 years ago, it was reasonable and rational for people to believe the negative things that they were saying about an entire nationality of people.
Totally.
Yeah,
Stereotypes were.
Yeah, it worked. You didn't have the information. Now we know down to the molecular level, the genome of a species. You can get on 23andMe and figure out where you came from.
Yes.
We now understand humans at that level, and we just need to expand that knowledge to believe hey, we're all one. We're all in this big blue dot floating through the cosmos together. There's only one of them.
Totally.
We're not going anywhere. We should probably figure it out.
It's wild to me.
Yeah. And the concept of using small little metal fragments backed by high explosives to impose your will on somebody else just seems so barbaric now.
Totally.
I don't understand why our politicians can't sit down around a table and do a deal.
Yes. Yeah.
And then probably because because America is corporate driven, right? And a lot of those politicians are corporate backed.
Totally.
The majority of them, I'm gonna throw a politician's gonna hit me anyway here. I don't care. They're underprepared to understand the circumstances of what they do. They are given a task to do it, and they don't understand the secondary and tertiary effects of what they're doing. And they're doing it just to maintain their position and to keep their job, instead of really serving the country for the long-term interest of the citizens.
Totally. Did you ever see any politicians when you were deployed?
No.
No. So you were front and center, America's ambassador.
We would get approvals at a national level for our missions.
Totally. But I mean, the Afghan citizens, for them, they're not going to meet another American ambassador, if you would, because it's not likely that they're going to meet somebody that's American over there.
No, they
at all, unless
really.
they're carrying a gun.
Yep.
That to me is well, what if we just, instead of sending all of the people with guns, what if we kept all the people with guns at home and then just sent all of our social workers out? What would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, people are oh, why are you educating little girls? And I was you're educating terrorists. It's do you not like them because they're brown?
Yeah.
Because they're Muslim or they're girls? I'm just trying to figure out which kind of bigot you are. I don't understand.
Totally.
But if America went and we went to Afghanistan, we said we made every little girl in that country educated, or at least literate.
Yeah.
If as a nation, if we went there and we educated or made 15 million women literate, that is something that our nation could puff their chest out and be satisfied with, ethically,
Yes.
morally responsibly. And there's more than enough data that shows when you educate the female population of a developing nation, the social benefits of that, economically, socially, culturally, or over the top. I don't understand. Like, educated women raise educated families. You make one generation of women literate, that the rest of it's going to follow on behind that, because educated moms don't let their kids go uneducated.
Totally.
You just got to give them the opportunity to do so.
It also has an effect immediately. Like, the people that are trying to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, be in love in that situation are like, all right, well, I can't be out here shooting at people and go home to my wife who's, you know, a genius. She's not going to like that.
No, not at all.
So
you got to raise your game, bro.
Totally.
Yep.
I love that. I love that. How many countries have you been to? You named quite a few, so.
Let's see here. Japan, Australia, Peru, El Salvador, Belize, Guatemala, Mexico, England, Ireland, France, Belgium, Spain, Italy, Germany, East Germany when it was a state.
Oh, really?
Canada.
I'll put a ticker on the interview so that we can count them. But I tried on my hands and I was like, I'm fucked.
Sudan, Kenya, DRC, Jordan, UAE, Afghanistan, Iraq, Turkey. I'm sure there's a few other ones in there. Yeah.
I won't tell anybody if you forgot a few.
Yeah.
Did you have any soldiers? I mean, you mentioned you were there for the Pat Tillman operation.
Mm-hmm.
You were deployed for some of the roughest operations. You were also an officer, so you were in command. How many soldiers did you have?
So I had a fire support team, which they were 9, but my platoon was 36.
Okay.
But I was really responsible for about, big ground, about 150 guys, right below the commander.
Okay.
Yeah, but if he were to go down, I would have had to take it over. But, just making sure that the fire support, the big guns were, staying safe for 150 dudes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I get into anything that, you don't want to talk about, just
Go
that's
for it,
fine.
man.
But you were, I don't know what it's like to have people under me.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few, but nothing like an officer. What's it like to lose someone in your command?
Yeah, I think when you're raised in the military, you just hear all these stories and you think it's something that just happens, and it happens to other people.
Yeah.
And then when it finally does happen, it like settles in, and maybe that it's real.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I may not actually be going home, and like these guys may not actually be going home, and like the guy's wife, and the little wiener dogs, because you pick them up from work every day and say hi to everyone, and then there might be that thing where, hey, I'm not gonna be able to pick him up on the way to work, and like his wife's not gonna have him there anymore.
Yeah.
I don't really know a way to describe it other than the fact that it just becomes real.
Yeah. So
it's not a movie anymore. It's not a fictitious thing. It's not something you hear in a story or read in a book. It's real.
Yeah.
It's right there.
What did your time in, how did it affect your mental health?
I think my time in the military put me in a very negative mindset. In a zero defect environment, you're always looking for faults. You're always looking for the wrong thing, something out of place. I've developed OCD habits where everything's got to be perfect. My life was plus or minus 3 seconds all the time, and I had to everything had to be in a row. And if it wasn't, then I would fault myself, or I would fault others, and then there'd be a negative interaction toward myself, or other than it's something that's taken me in 10 years to really work myself out of. And there's energy goes where the attention flows, and if you're constantly thinking of negative things and faults, you find more negative things and faults instead of really looking at the positive things you have going on in life. And it's taken 10 years of really hard work, 13 years now, to really train myself out of that, and being mindful enough to catch myself when I get myself in a negative thought cycle where I want to beat somebody's ass for yelling at me for my dog being off leash, to going no man, that guy, he's bright, my dog's off leash.
I'm not paying attention to that dumb rule.
Yeah, okay. He got lippy with me or whatever, I'm going to butt fuck your soul right now because you talk to me that way, versus nope, negative mindset, that guy might be scared of dogs. He might have had a bad interaction as a kid. I'm gonna put my dog on a leash. I'm gonna apologize and get on with my day.
Nice.
So I would have to say, like, the mindset in the military, how it affected me, and the negative frame was that. And I would say it was pervasive throughout my life for a long period of time, and it's been a significant amount of work to break myself of that cycle. On the positive side, I'd have to say, when you understand what it's like to be a part of a values-based organization where everybody shares the same values and everybody's working hard, if you plan right, you can do anything you want to. Right, and that example was set for me early, and I've carried that forward all the way through. And I mean, we wrote a book in under 90 days.
Yeah.
Conceptualized it, wrote it across an international border, hardcover, softcover, and recorded the audiobook day 89, and released it and delivered paperbacks in under 90 days.
Wow.
Right, like my co-author Leo was former Army Ranger, and he was, oh, dude, this is going to take long. Writing a book takes years. And I said, oh, hey, man, you remember what we used to do for a living? Come on now, bro, we can do this. And I, like, flipped his mindset. Like, yep, we can.
Nice.
Like, we can plan it, we can execute it, we can do it.
I love that. You mentioned before we started that you, and I got a little bit of B-roll, you guys discussing the rebrand. You guys are doing a rebrand?
Yeah, so the next big thing for Combat Flip-Flops is our rebrand. You know, we were the little company who did. Like, everybody said we were going to fail from the beginning. And then we would just work super hard. We're right within our target market: tactical, military, law enforcement. Named Combat Flip-Flops. Our target market's a 20 to 50-year-old dude who served in the military or law enforcement who lives in certain geographic areas. And we got on a Shark Tank. Company blew up. We tried to expand beyond that market, and it's just been unsustainable.
Okay.
So really what we're doing is we're going to call back a lot of our line, focus on what we're good at, and so we're doing a full rebrand, and we've never actually been able to put our logo on our shoes. Okay. Because we have a star in our logo. Yeah. And Converse has the patent or the trademark on the 5-point star on a shoe. So we've never actually been able to, like, it's one of the dumb things you do when you first start a business. Like, you don't think about those things. So we got a new logo coming out, new website coming out. It's going to be a new fresh look, and it's going to come out in about 2 months. Okay. So that's coming, and then we're going to do something else a little bit to expand into the larger market. Probably spring 2020.
That's exciting. Mm-hmm. What did Shark Tank do for Combat Flip-Flop?
Yeah, so Shark Tank is real.
Yeah.
Like, there's no faking. You can read all the things like, oh, this is fake, that's fake. No, it's not fake. You were in there. We were in there for an hour and 45 minutes. They cut it down to 12. Wow. But you're doing real deals with people. We had 44,000 concurrent users on our website the night that it hit. You know, we did more business in 36 hours than we did in our entire company history. Wow. Funded hundreds of years of school for little Afghan girls. And it really, like, gave us the momentum that we needed to really, like, get our machine rolling. It's really nice when you go in a business meeting with somebody and they're, like, questioning whether or not we're legit. And you go, no, Mark Keelan's my business partner. And you go, oh. Like, yeah. We're not messing around. Yeah, we're here for real. You know, we've been doing this for 7 years now. Like, it works, and you know, Shark Tank has really done a great thing for us by expanding our mission out, getting us more into our customer base, giving us a larger group of people to work with, and we call them our unarmed forces. So you buy our product, you become a member of the unarmed forces, and just the saying is, it comes out of Persia or Afghanistan, but drop by drop a river is made. Like, one person by one person. Like, more people are signing up to be a part of our mission, aligned with our mindset of, like, hey, support the person, question the policy, do good for the world in between, and just have a lot of faith that over time, like, we're going to be successful. So it's really helped us expand that mission.
That's awesome. Do you talk to the Sharks on a regular basis at all?
No, we have our monthly investor meetings. Their rep shows up on the call. Okay. You know, we email Mark, you know, once a month, and we just accept our role as being in a portfolio of a couple hundred companies. Yeah. Do our job. Cool. Communicate.
Say thank you.
Say thank you, and just continue to carry on. And it's really nice not to have, like, an oppressive investor, you know, oversight riding shotgun on you all the time.
That's cool. I don't think I have any more questions for you. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't. It's 12 o'clock. I'll get out of here. Yeah. Thank you.
Do it. No worries.
Thanks for letting me come into your office.
Shut off in my pocket.
Oh man, that would have sucked.